start the second part. Okay, I don't want to compete with anybody here because competition is healthy, but not when it's my voice that's at stake. So if you can save the rest of your conversation for the break, I will promise, or rather the end of it, and I promise that I will make an end one time. The second half is slightly shorter than the first half, but more focused, as I realised I went over a little bit in the first half, which is one of the things I like to do. Looks like Katarzyna has something to say.
One sentence, only that, please, if you have any questions, just please ask Mr. James. He is a very wise man, and he's here to have an interactive lecture with you. So, and when we have impression that you're not sure, of course you can ask. Yeah? If there's something you would like to ask or discuss or whatever, please do it. Thank you.
Absolutely. So, just recapping the first thing, the first of the three big things I want you to take home from this lecture about multicultural management, particularly in this part of the world, the Eastern European area. The first one is forget post-communism. Just to recap, that's what I said in the first part of it. You analyse the differences between a nation and the way the nation comes across, the sort of group of, if you like, the collective mental programming of the group, which is the way we define culture. The differences that occur between one nation and another that you'll notice, don't just write them off as being post-communism, yeah? But look, when you analyse a country, try to get into understanding the particularity of a nation, what constitutes a nation, you must look at the whole history. Okay? Now the second thing that I want to come to, the second of those things that three things that I want you to take away, and I'll go through them first and we'll do the rest of what I want to do, is an organisational culture, organisational mindset is more powerful, more important than national mindset. So when you talk about the Poles are like this, the Czechs are like that, the Slovaks are like the other, the Romanians are different still, and the Bulgarians are even more different. You might be surprised to discover that when you go to a legal firm in the Czech Republic or to a legal firm in Poland or whatever, you're not just dealing with Poles and Czechs, you're dealing with the people that are part of the profession of lawyers. And that profession tends to attract a certain type of people that need to be managed in a certain way. Okay? So, let's say that I get tasked with a job of restructuring an international firm of lawyers. What sort of individuals am I going to come up with? I'm going to come up with educated, usually strongly opinionated people with a good ability to argue and advocate for their view, and who will stick with their view and argue it out. Okay, and I have to win hearts and minds if I want to restructure a legal firm. I have to hear them out and say, yes, but have you thought of this? And I have to win them over in argument. Now, if I'm asked to restructure a firm of waste collectors, and I'm giving new tasks to the waste collection men, you know, and one of them, for example, is from now on, we're going to be doing periodic checks to see if you've got alcohol in your bloodstream when you come to work, yeah? And they start to, you know, they're not going to be like the lawyers, you know, they're not going to come and say, well, you know, I've got some arguments, you know, I'd like to polemicise a little bit with that point that you just made. I'd just like to point to Article 4.2 of this thing, or talk about this particular precedent. I mean, they're not going to do that, yeah, they're just going to moan, and you're just going to say, that's what we're going to do, we do it. Yeah, because there's different ways of managing a dustbin man, or a team of men. I don't even say a dustbin man, because even within dustbin men, you're going to get individuals. I don't know if any of you have read the Dilbert series, but you should. Dilbert, if you read the Dilbert books, he actually has discussions with his dustbin man on the meaning of life, and he gives him good ideas for engineering projects, but he's just a dustbin man. So there are always people that are going to break the stereotype. There are always people that are going to break the mold. Be aware of that. Okay? But as a group, collectively, the collective mindset of your average team of dustbin men is not philosophical. Okay? It's not intellectual. So even if you do get one who's intellectual, he doesn't stick his neck out that much if he's in a team of dustbin people. Okay? So managing them is a question of saying, your route tomorrow is bang. You do that route. Okay? And they're just happy they've got a simple set of rules, they can follow it and do it. Because that's what they've got used to as dustbin men, even if individually some of them are capable of far more. Whereas lawyers, even if some of them are capable of far less, really, than what they're doing, yeah, are going to get used to the fact that they're supposed to come up with some kind of witty response. And you've got to win them over. So, and that's going to be the same whether you're in one country or another. And the same thing, so it's not only that certain professions have got different ways that you need to manage them, yeah? It's also that within similar professions you've got different cultures, within different organisations, within different firms of accountants. You've got some that function more on fear. They've got really high salaries, and they work hard because they fear of losing their jobs and not getting such a high salary anywhere else. You've got some of them which are part of a team. They don't earn so much, but they're emotionally attached to one another as a team. They're all partners. They know, they believe that collectively they will move forward, and therefore they all work hard as well, and that's what motivates them. And then if you take a team that's based on a real team family, almost like a second family of people that you're working with, you take a team like that and you start trying to manage them by fear, it'll ruin everything. Okay? And that doesn't matter whether you're in one country or in another country. Whatever the local culture might be, whether it's Turkey, which has a surprising culture when you actually get into it, it's not anywhere near as Islamic as people think on the outside, or whether, but it is quite a monolithic culture in comparison with most of what you have in this part of Europe. Whether it's the UK, or whether it's the United States or Canada, you're going to find that individual organisational cultures, as they develop, will take precedence and be more persuasive to the way people behave than actually the national culture. Okay? So therefore, when you come from one country to another and start getting involved in projects in the future, you don't only want to be asking yourself, well, what are Norwegians like, or what are French people like? You certainly do want to be asking. I'm going to be giving an example later of somebody who didn't ask that, who got into trouble. But you've got to ask yourself, what's the culture that's been cultured? You had to culture something like viticulture, or growing of grapes, yeah? What's the culture that's been nurtured, fostered in that particular organisation? Has it been a culture of internal competitiveness or internal support? Is it a culture of fear, or is it a culture where people can speak openly amongst themselves? Yeah? Different kinds of cultures. Is it a culture where people are fiercely loyal to their organisation, believing in their pyramid? Here we've got TPA Horworth with their pyramid structure. It's called the Pinnacle. I know that because I used to be with Horworth. Are TPA people, you know, are they believing in that pinnacle like they're believing in God, or is it just there for decoration? If you need to know that if you're going to come in and, for example, manage a group of TPA people. So, organisational culture transcends or goes, or is greater than, more persuasive, more binding on a group than national culture generally. Okay? And I say this to you so that you don't go away with the idea that national differences, which is what I am going to come on and talk about, are the most important thing. And And then the third big thing that I'm going to talk about, or that I want you to take away from this, there's three big things to take away, is biology. Okay? We are all human beings. Okay? And biologically, that means we're all the same. Now, that doesn't mean to say we're all identical. I already said at the beginning that we're all very different, just like all our fingerprints are different. We've got different characters, interests, and what have you. But within the human race, okay, you'll find people like yourself in the most unexpected places. And you'll find people unlike yourself in the most unexpected places. You might discover in 30 years from now, or 40, or 50, you might discover that the person who understands you best is somebody with a different colour skin, born in a completely different culture and country, born in into a different religious system, and with a completely different education and background. Okay? And that somehow you find that person, you get on with them better than anybody else. That person might become your best friend, might become your husband or wife, or homosexual partner if that's what you're into. Very common these days. And it might be somebody completely from a slice of humanity that you never even thought of. Okay? Might even be from Detroit. That would be really nice. But nobody's seen Kentucky Fried Movie recently. But basically, you could be at a table, a breakfast table, with your own born brother or sister. Okay? And share your freshly squeezed orange juice or whatever it is you Americans drink. Yeah? Every morning throughout your childhood. Yeah? Be looking at the same pictures on the walls in your kitchen. Have the same parents. Be going to the same church or synagogue for your whole of your childhood. And then in 30 years' time you might discover that your own born brother is about as different to you as chalk is from cheese. Even if you came out from the womb of the lady, your mother, within a few minutes of each other. Okay? It is possible for people to be from the same family and absolutely different in character and all sorts of things. Yeah? And people that come from opposite ends of the planet and get on like a house on fire. Okay? That's what I always say when I meet racists. Okay? And occasionally you come across people that have got racist attitudes. Okay? I know it's the 21st century. I know that you're young people, you've probably never seen any racists in your generation, but occasionally you see racists. Okay? And I try to explain it to them that way. And of course, racists are usually stupid. There's a nice stereotype, but this time it's one that probably works. Yeah? So they don't understand that. Okay? But basically what you have to understand is we're one race. Okay? It's the human race. I am actually a racist. Yeah? If anybody doesn't belong to the human race, I think they should go back to whatever planet they came from. But other than that, yeah, there's only one human race, okay? And people that look completely different to us on the outside can be exactly the same on the inside. People that dress, we talked about dress, and that was a very good point about dress. I'm not undermining your point about dress early on, yeah? But you can get people, okay, I prefer to dress in a tie. Okay, you could get a bunch of people in a room, some of them are in ties, some of them are not in ties. So you think, well, do the ones who are in ties have a different culture to the ones who are not in ties? You have to get past the way they dress, you have to get past the way they look, the race that they come from, what have you. You have to get right into their head. Okay? Now, having discussed and got to know these people, let's say they're people in the same class as you, you've got to know them by chatting with each of them over a protracted period, and you kind of can say, after knowing them for a while, this guy wears a tie because he's fat and he thinks that the tie will cover it a little bit. Actually, it's my own. Don't tell anybody. It's a secret. But maybe there's another person who says, I wear a tie because it's the uniform of my profession. I didn't go to the best university in my country and go through, so many years of training and this and that thing and take X number of exams so that I could look like a common plebeian. Yeah, that might be the reason why one person wears a tie. That's why I used to wear ties, but then I got fat. And then you might get somebody else that says, well, I'm wearing a tie because they're still wearing one. Yeah? And you might have somebody who says, I don't want to wear a tie, of the people that don't wear ties. I'm not wearing a tie because I didn't go to the best university in my country and spent X number of years in a university doing this and training and that and X number of exams so that I'd be told how I need to wear, what I need to wear. Yeah? He looks different, but actually his thinking is really very, very close to the other guy, right? And then you might have somebody else that says, oh, I wear a tie because I think that the world's going to end in 2012 in December, and I want to look good if it happens a little bit earlier, and if it does, by the way, if it doesn't happen, I shall actually help it along by blowing everybody up. Yeah? So you can have somebody with a very strange culture inside their head, completely mentally different, let's put it that way, and yet he looks like the other guys who had more conventional reasons, or at least more common to man, as it were, reasons for wearing them. Okay, so you've got to get into people's heads to know what drives them, rather than, and you've got to expect a lot of diversity within a group which all looks the same, yeah, but find as well common strands from people that come from absolutely different places, and that's why, in fact, this second thing is true. Because every time you impose culture, every time you impose organisational culture, you're imposing a collective mental programme onto a group of people, or you're allowing it to develop within the group of people freely. Okay? But it's going to be something which is a compromise deal. And no single person, they say the definition of a compromise is that you've got a compromise, a perfect compromise, if everybody walks away unhappy. Okay? So culture, so it is with an organisational culture, okay? You get organisations which are open, you get organisations which are closed, we're going to look at that in a minute. But whatever it is, there's going to be somebody that thinks, oh, I wish my organisation was a bit more this. And if it goes that way, you're going to find other people that think, well, I wish the organisation was a bit more that way. Because we're all different. And nobody's happy. I can promise you, everybody at work who's out there working in a group of people, nobody's 100% happy with their organisation.